Hi, I'm Richard Rogers, and I absolutely hope that you enjoy today's spiritual message. You know, we at Unity of Phoenix Spiritual Center are committed to helping people live better lives. We're going to provide you tools over and over, spiritual tools that allow you to live your best possible life. And if you want to leave a donation to continue to allow the work that we do to support other people just like you, we say thank you. Thank you for your generosity, because this ministry is committed to making the world a better place. So for the last 9 weeks, I've been doing this series, So You Want to Be Spiritual. And you know, I love this. I mean, I've really enjoyed this series because all of us, in one way or another, really have a little bit of a, you know, like, I would suggest that most of us, maybe not all of us, but most of us have a little bit of attitude when we say to our friends and family, oh, I'm not religious, I'm spiritual. Like, and we get ourselves kind of, you know, we can get ourselves kind of a little inflated about that. You know, it's like, please, I'm just so spiritual. Right? And we just love saying that. We love to think how spiritual we are. We love to feel it. You know, I'm just so spiritual. You know, I listen to spiritual music, and I listen to spiritual CDs, and I read spiritual books, and I just get so spiritual sometimes. I don't know what to do with myself, right? Right? And the reality is we get off on the idea of how spiritual we are. And I wanted to do for 9 weeks, I wanted to bring it back to really spiritual principles and say, but how you live in this? Right? Because there's a part of us that doesn't really want to be brought down with the details. Have you ever been in that place in your life? Where you just want to just tell yourself, oh, I'm so spiritual, but I don't really do that. Right? And I don't really practice that, or I don't really believe that, but I'm so spiritual that in fact, I just go beyond that. I've gone so beyond that, right? So I really wanted to kind of break it down into what are those spiritual things that are kind of fundamental. And so tonight, I want to talk about your perfection and your imperfection. Right? Because your spiritual self was created in the image and likeness of God. Is that perfect? Yeah. Now, your humanity is kind of interesting. Did anybody else ever been surprised by their own humanity? Like the words that come out of your mouth or your actions, or so we're living this thing of our perfect imperfection, right? And that's where I want to go today, because I want to kind of play in that realm of how do we live in both worlds? How do we live spiritually perfect, and yet sometimes we got some train wrecks, right? Have you ever felt like your life was a little bit of a train wreck, or a big old train wreck, you know? So how do we, because both of those are true, right? And for most of us, we really felt like we'd be all that when our human life or humanity was as perfect as our spiritual life. Like when our humanity matches our spirituality, we think, well, then I've arrived. But what if it never really happens like that? What if you're always balancing the perfection and the imperfection and having to learn to live right there? Because I have this belief that most of the human pain that we live in is because we have this belief that we're not enough. And that if I could get all of that human pain from the belief that we're not enough, we could really heal the planet. So tonight, I actually want your pain. Not that I'm going to take it on and wear it home, but I want you to be willing to acknowledge the pain in your life where you feel like you're not only not enough, but categorically, profoundly not enough. Because I think as a people, as a race, as a humanity, we carry around so much pain from feeling like we're not enough. And so And it kind of creates a level of confusion. How can I feel so broken and yet still created in the image and likeness of God? So that's where we're going to go tonight, okay? That's what we're going to talk about is like, how do we reorganize this in a way that makes more sense, that we can actually let go of our pain? How many of you would be willing to let go of your pain tonight from any feelings that you're not enough? Wouldn't that be fantastic? I mean, that's what I want. That's what I came for. That's where we're going tonight is I want you to really take a fierce inner look at your stuff, your soul, your story, and any place where you feel like you were profoundly not enough or even slightly not enough. I want you to be willing to give it to God tonight, because I want you to be willing to let that story go, because in my experience, your humanity is never going to get perfect. I know that some of you are so close. I realize that, right? You're just knocking on the door of you're just practically perfect. Your body, your life, your finances is just practically perfect. You're right on the edge, right? And then one thing happens, right? And then the whole thing starts tumbling out of control, and you go, I was so close to having the perfect life. So what if tonight you were willing to see yourself as enough just the way you are? I am enough. Together? I am enough. One more time, just for grins. I am enough. In fact, you're going to go one step further. I am more than enough. Together? I am more than enough. So Tina liked that one. Tina's been waiting all day to say that, right? Let's say that one more time. I am more than enough. I'm more than enough. Is that true? If you're created in the image and likeness of God, is that true? Yes, you're more than enough. So let's really play with this tonight. All right? So let me ask you, if a visiting dignitary, like the Dalai Lama or the Pope or Deepak Chopra or somebody that you consider all that in a bag of nuts, right? If they were going to come home tonight and spend the night at your house, and you were going to prepare your house for them for dinner, maybe dinner tonight and maybe breakfast tomorrow morning, if the Dalai Lama was going to come to your home tonight, how many of you would go into massive panic right now? Why? Like what's the difference, right? It's your house. You're going home there. Like, you're not having a panic attack that you're going home there, right? But the idea that if a traveling dignitary, if somebody really special was going to come to your house, how many of you would think that you'd want to work a little bit harder on your house? Maybe buy some groceries, clean out the cat box, something, before the dignitary gets there, right? And it's this idea that we have that really other people are more important than we are. That other people, especially those kind of people, we want to make sure that everything is just right so we don't look bad in front of those kind of people. Because then they'd find out that, whatever the story, they'd find out that who I really am and how I'd really live, and then I'd have to kind of make peace with who I really am and the things that I allow myself to settle for. The things that I'll put up with, but I wouldn't want anybody else to have to put up with. I want you to see tonight just how many times you will go so much further for somebody else than you'll go for yourself. That you'll accept so much less for you than you would ever expect somebody else to settle for. And it's somebody especially that you hold in high regard. Like that you'll treat somebody that you hold in high regard so much better than you would treat yourself. Like you'd be willing to go the extra mile. Well, I need to get give me 6 months and I'll get the place repainted and, I'll get all new linens, and then I'll be ready, right? Then I'll make sure that everything is just perfect for them. But it's okay for you to live there just the way it is. Well, it's just me. So what if tonight you actually began to treat yourself the way you would treat the most holy, noble, divine person you knew. And what if you were willing to act that way consistently toward yourself? Or Richard, that'd just be egotistical. You know, if I put clean sheets on the bed every night, like, please, who am I? Like, let's just bring this down to reality. Once a month, clean sheets is more than enough. You know, can I tell you a story? When I was I've never said this publicly. When I was in college, you know what color sheets my sheets were? I thought it was genius to have brown sheets. They never look dirty, right? Okay, nobody's buying that logic at all. Okay, just wipe it off your mind, right? All right, let's get to Scripture. It seemed logical. I'm glad my mom's not here tonight. Thank you, God. Matthew 13, verse 44 and 45. The kingdom of heaven is like a treasure hidden in a field, which a man found. No, 45 and 46. Again, the kingdom of heaven is like a merchant in search of a fine pearl, who on finding the one pearl of great value went and sold all that he had to buy it. So what's the job of a merchant? To buy and sell things of value, things of quality, things that he can actually sell, right? So this merchant is looking for pearls of great value that he might buy these pearls and resell them, right? Because that's what a merchant does. He's about reselling them. And so he goes out looking for these things of value that he may be able to buy at a price that he could resell. And he comes along this pearl of great price. And it's so exquisite, it's so amazing, so perfect that he goes and sells everything he has so that he can own this pearl. Right? And that's the whole story. The kingdom of heaven is like this guy who searches for things of value. And when he finds it, he goes and sells all that he has and buys the pearl. And I want you to see how many times when Jesus is talking about the kingdom of heaven, he talks about buying it. He talks about owning it. And in our culture, you know, we don't really think about buying and owning the kingdom of heaven. We think of, oh, that's part of the spiritual thing. You don't buy and you don't own the kingdom of heaven. But I want you to really look in your own life and about your own value and about who you are, and you're created in the image and likeness of God. And have you really bought yourself? Do you own you? Well, Richard, I would, but there's some things that I'd really like to trade myself in. Is there another model that I can trade myself in for? Because, you know, I'm nice and I'm wonderful, but, you know, it's like I want to trade myself in. And tonight, what I'd really like you to look at is what keeps you from truly owning yourself. Both your strength and your weaknesses, your good and your bad, your light and your dark. Because there is this process of, as we continue to mature spiritually, there's a moment where we have to decide that we're going to own ourselves. I don't really want to own myself because I'm not quite perfect yet. Well, there's this moment where we have to decide that we are enough. And the moment we decide we are enough, we actually take ownership of ourselves in a brand new way. We actually own who we really are. Not just who we hope to be or want to be or think we could be, but really who we are right here, right now. We take ownership of that. We own who we are. And one of the things about ownership is you actually can see it. You can perceive its value because you bought it. You own it. It's yours. And I want you to really look at yourself at the times when you haven't wanted to take ownership of yourself. Like, it's not my fault. It's my parents' fault. It's my spouse's, it's my kid's fault. I don't know whose fault. Maybe it's the government's fault. They made me this way. It was the public educational system that messed me up. But there's a moment where we have to take ownership of ourselves, where we have to decide that we are enough. And our spiritual process kind of keeps falling and kind of keeps tripping over ourselves until the moment we own ourselves completely. I am enough. Will you say that with me? I am enough. Now, does everybody have at least 2 or 3 things that you want to argue about that statement? Like, if this was different, then I'd be enough. Or if, my financial life was different, then I'd be enough. Or if I lost 10, 15, 20, 30 pounds, then I'd be enough. But what would happen tonight if you just claimed yourself as enough just the way you are? Would that help you or would that hurt you? Would that just mean you're going to just sit on the couch and eat bonbons because you're enough and that's it? And God bless you. And there's got to be a Lucy channel on somewhere right now, right? I am enough. Will you say that with me? I am enough. This is your relationship with God. This has always been your relationship with God. That in this continuum, somewhere along the way, your relationship with God has been here over and over and over again, right? That it goes up and down, but this is your relationship with God. Is that okay? Okay? This is your humanity, right? And your humanity is that place where this is how you show up as a human being having a spiritual experience. And you've been up and down this road because there's an infinite number of places along this road. That sometimes it's all working and sometimes it doesn't feel it all. But this is your experience right now. You're a spiritual being having a spiritual experience, and you're a human being having a human experience. Did you see that? Does that make sense? And that we're at this place where and this is the place that is the pearl of great price. The pearl of great price is that place where those 2 possibilities intersect. That we either own that or we don't own that. We can either say, well, as soon as I get further this way or that way or up or down, then I'm going to be willing to accept myself. But really the pearl of great price is that intersection where our spirituality and our humanity meet. And tell me how you create a pearl. Right? So what happens, right, there's something that comes into an oyster, freshwater, seawater, whatever, right, that is usually a grain of sand. And is the oyster happy about it? No, the oyster hates it. Right? Now, I don't know how intelligent an oyster is, right? I don't know how spiritually evolved they are either, right? So I'm going to make some assumptions, and if anybody is an oyster in a previous life, please just forgive me, okay? Okay, so a grain of sand comes into an oyster, and the oyster resists it, right? Is there any issue or problem that's ever come into your life that you've resisted? Right? Now, an oyster absolutely never makes peace with its grain of sand. Right? That as long as the oyster is alive, it keeps trying to coat that grain of sand and coat that grain of sand and coat that grain of sand. And as it does it, that pearl becomes more and more valuable. Right? And until it is a work of art, till it's jewelry, until it's beautiful beyond words. That what I want you to see tonight is that there was no mistake that Jesus picked the pearl to demonstrate this intersection. There's no mistake. That the place where you've been the most resistant to yourself is really your place of beauty. It's your place of power. It's your place of transformation. It's the place that's going to change everything in your life as soon as you decide it's enough. Now, you can be at odds with it. You can be at odds with it to the day you die. You can actually live every day at odds with yourself, never being enough until the very day you die and you go to the other side with the same story that you lived with every day on this planet. Or you can decide tonight that you're enough. And that little nasty grain of sand has been at work perfecting your soul in ways that you couldn't see when you were in resistance to it. I am enough. Together? I am enough. Now, if you say that you're enough, does that instantly remove the pearl out of your system? No, that pearl's not going anywhere. It's you. It's your imperfection. It's part of the spiritual design of you dancing with both your divinity and your humanity, that it is a part of you. It's not going anywhere, so that you either make peace with it, you either move beyond resistance, you either call it enough, or it just makes you miserable to the day you die. But when you die, some guy's going to want to buy it and sell it to somebody else because it really was beautiful. And it was so beautiful, he would be willing to sell everything else. How many of you have at least one thing in your life that you've been at odds with, and you actually see it's been one of your greatest teachers for your whole life? And until you own that pearl, you're not your most powerful self. But the moment you decide that the thing that you've resisted your whole life, you're willing to buy, everything changes. I claim my pearl. Will you say that with me? I claim my pearl. Now, let's say it like we actually mean it. I claim my pearl. One more time. I claim my pearl. Because it's going to be there. Right? It's just going to be there the whole time. And you can be mad, you can argue, you can tell God how wrong this is, that you should never have this pearl, that you should have never gotten this grain of sand, that there should be nothing in your life that you should ever resist that much. Or you can say, wow, what if this really is my most beautiful thing? And what would happen if I just owned it at 100%? That you're both spiritual and human. And you came to fulfill those two things. Because literally, you could have just been spiritual on the other side. You could have just played in the infinite, right? But you thought it was a good idea to come here, right? With the idea that every one of us was going to get a little grain of sand. Now, right? And we didn't want the grain of sand. But we also wanted to come for the lessons, the experiences that we wanted in this world. And so we were given a grain of sand. And very few people buy their pearl. Most people die never seeing the beauty of their own pearl. But those people who own it, who buy it, who live it, who call it good, that's heaven. The kingdom of heaven is like a person in search of his pearl and finds it and sells everything in his life so that he can own his pearl. And on buying his pearl, his soul is liberated. He's in ecstasy. For the thing that he thought was the most wrong with him becomes his greatest gift. I want your pain tonight. I want every ounce of your pain that you're not enough. I want your story. I want your drama. I want all the ramifications that pain has caused you. for any way that you believe that because you had a little bit of sand in your soul that you were not enough. I want it. Because you literally do not have to be in pain one more day. You don't have to have a story one more day that you're not enough. The kingdom of heaven is upon you. It's right here. It's right here. It's the thing that you've been working on and growling at and upset with. It's right here. And the moment you own it, everything in your life has changed. Will you pray with me? And I invite you to open your mind, your heart, your soul to your own pearl. And I want you just to feel how upset you are about your pearl. How annoying it's been, what a problem it's been, whatever your issue was, whatever the situation was, how much you wanted to get rid of it and fix it, change it and heal it. And today, what if you just buy it? What if you just own it? What if you just own the thing that has been the most wrong with you? What if you get your arms all the way around it and can see how literally gorgeous it is? God, I give you all my brokenness tonight. I give you all my stories. I give you all the times when I felt like wasn't enough. I give you the feelings of brokenness and all the times when I knew I wasn't acceptable. I give you all of it. And tonight I bring it into the light that I may see it in a new way. That I might accept myself as if for the first time. That I may invite you into the place where I felt the most wounded and let that become the most valuable part of who I am. I am created in the image and likeness of God. I am whole and complete and lacking in nothing. So I dedicate this pearl to God, that I might hold it as a sacred gift from my Creator and celebrate its beauty. And so it is. Amen.